Alright, the last video was all fun and games, but now it's time to get serious. Time to get down to the reasons why I wanted to talk about Devil May Cry in the first place. The story. Il storissimo, as they say in Italiano. If you go into these games looking for a good story, you're just barking up the wrong tree, cause in this series, gameplay always takes priority over the narrative. At least, everywhere outside Japan. See, in the Land of the Rising Sun, DMC 4 and 5 both had novelizations with tons of extra details that the games didn't get into. So in the games, you only get the essential story beats that allow you to understand the motivations of the characters to keep you moving through the game. Thing is though, those motivations are terrible. I looked up a synopsis of all the extra stuff that happens in the novels, and even with that additional context, I'm still having trouble understanding what the hell they were thinking when they made this game. It's stupid because DMC 5 is packed to the brim with retcons, and I don't have a prejudice against retcons, like on principle or whatever. A retcon here or there isn't the end of the world. Where it gets ugly is when a writer runs into accidental retcons, a story contradiction that the writer didn't plan for. And as much as it pains me to say it, this kind of thing only happens when a writer just doesn't give a shit. Bingo Morihashi has the grand honor of being this game's scenario writer. He also wrote the stories for DMC 3 and 4 in addition to the novelizations for 4 and 5. Knowing that, there really isn't any excuse for dropping the ball as hard as it was, but just wait, you'll see. I'm being dramatic, of course. DMC 5 actually has a pretty good story. Not as good as it could have been, but there's definitely some good in there. The good stuff is just tucked away, deep down under a crusty layer of chunky buffalo giblets, that's all. Not only that, but the story just isn't delivered to the player in any kind of effective manner. So I'm gonna try to point out the stuff that I actually liked about the game, but that ain't gonna be easy, cause before I can do that, I gotta go through the whole thing and take out the trash. Otherwise, whatever good I found in this story just wouldn't make any pennies. So after the entire DMC crew gets their ass beat by the Demon King Urizen, Nero shows up like he's gonna be able to contribute anything of value, but we all know how that goes. Hoping to buy Nero some time to escape, Dante holds Urizen off. Then Dante says some stupid ass shit knowing full well it's gonna piss Nero off.
Nero, go! You're just dead weight!
Dante doesn't want Nero to fight, because as everybody already knew before the game even came out, Urizen is actually Nero's father and Dante's twin brother Vergil. Sorry, former twin brother. Anyway, I guess Dante got the idea in his head that Nero would never be able to overcome the guilt of killing his own father. Never mind the fact that the guy tore Nero's arm off, then summoned a giant demon vampire tree in the middle of a heavily populated city in order to suck the blood of tens of thousands of innocent people to make himself more powerful. Forget all that. Dante doesn't want Nero to fight his dad, so he literally says the one thing that would make Nero want to keep fighting. We are off to a good start. Bargain bin Adam Driver, who weighs about 85 pounds with his cane, is able to pull Nero out of there. Nero, the guy who can scissor kick half of a Toyota Camry. V was able to hold this guy back. Then the game fast forwards about a month. Nero's got a robotic arm to make up for the one that got stolen, and we get a quick glimpse of Nero using his new toy. Then things take a turn for the worse, and the story does the one thing you should never do: a flashback. I'm gonna give you some advice that's gonna ruin your life in a good way, and that's not gonna make sense until you see it happen. You're gonna hate me for it in the short term, but you'll thank me later. If there's something in a character's past that is now coming back to haunt them, or if there's a memory that wasn't relevant to the current situation until now, that's the perfect opportunity to use a flashback. Do not use flashbacks as exposition dumps, or to provide context. Just don't do it. So Nero's chilling out, working on his Winnebago, when Vergil shows up, and everybody knows it's Vergil. Why they thought they could make this some kind of dramatic reveal is beyond me, but whatever. As far as Nero's concerned, it's just some random hobo. But then Nero's arm starts glowing, something that only happens when there's a demon close by. And because the protagonist in a story has exactly as many brain cells as the writer, he has to ask a stupid question.
You a demon?
Then this happens.
Oh shit! Oh shit!
Nero has a business hunting demons. That's what he does for a living. Not only that, but he was trained by his foster brother Credo to be a Knight of the Holy Order of the Sword. If Nero recognized Hobo Man as anything even resembling a threat, there's no way he would have turned his back to him. So either Credo never taught Nero that you should never give your back to your opponent, or Nero's doing a really shitty job of honoring Credo's legacy. And that's ironic because Nero's entire character arc revolves around not being able to save the guy. As with most of Devil May Cry 5's story, the name of the game here is contrivance. It's forced and unnatural, because the only reason why Nero turns around is because the writer needed Vergil to be able to somehow sneak up on Nero. But that still doesn't work, because this game wants me to believe that a weakened, decaying Vergil is able to pull Nero's arm off at the socket like it was attached with bubblegum. Actually, that would explain at least one thing. Okay, wait, hold on. Since when is the Yamato made out of Nero's arm? In the last game, Nero stored the Yamato in his arm, but it's not like the Yamato was his arm, right? Whatever, I'll just ignore that. Let's keep going. Vergil takes the Yamato, and then he... Whoa! What the hell is going on here? Clearly, I didn't get a memo, because the Yamato has never been able to cut open portals. Not in this timeline anyway, but I'm getting ahead of myself. Going back to this scene, this one brief moment is what ruins the entire story of Devil May Cry 5. And the thing that ruins it is the fact that Vergil's in it in the first place. Don't get me wrong, Vergil definitely needed to come back for 5. DMC fans across the world, myself included, demanded that Vergil be an important aspect of 5's story. But not like this. Not like this. You can't just bring Vergil back out of nowhere, you gotta earn that right. Chronologically, the last time we saw Vergil was as Nilo Angelo in DMC 1, so I need to know what events transpired that led to this point. What exactly is exploding out of him in this scene? Is this the spell Mundus cast on him dissipating? Did he get teleported back to the demon world after that? Or did he survive Malay Island blowing up and did he swim thousands of miles to the next continent? Where'd he get those clothes? How'd he know where to find Nero? All these burning questions being left up in the air are clear indicators that the writer didn't know what the McFuck they were doing. Oh, I am not loving it. And we've just begun. It's about to get so much worse. When people said they wanted to see Vergil in another game, it's not like people needed him to be a good guy by the end. We were just hoping he'd be treated with a little respect and be given some kind of believable story arc. If Vergil turned out to be Adolf Satan by the end of the game, that would have been perfectly fine, as long as his motivations were believable and in line with previous depictions of the character. When we first meet Vergil in DMC 3, he's obsessed with obtaining more power. But there are reasons behind his actions. The main reason he gives us is because he wants to be as strong as his father, Sparta. As the older twin, he feels that the legacy of Sparta is his birthright. Unfortunately, Vergil mistakenly thinks it was Sparta's demonic power that made him strong. He never understood that Sparta's strength came from his sense of compassion and desire to protect innocent people. Why didn't Vergil ever get the picture? It's hard to say. People that have read the DMC3 manga think that Vergil was affected by his home being attacked by demons as a child. According to that interpretation, Vergil was under the impression that Eva escaped with Dante and left him behind, and because of that, he sees humanity as weak and insignificant. The problem with that is, does he blame his mom for being too weak to save him? Or does he blame his own humanity for being too weak to protect his mother? And I guess he chose to abandon humanity altogether as a coping mechanism to help deal with his guilt? Wait, okay, I think I got it. Okay, Vergil thinks his human side is weak for having abandonment issues, and since his human mother is the source of that, he turned his back on her entire species so that he never has to feel the pain of being left behind again. That seems reasonable, but that's just my interpretation of these events. Maybe the whole Sparta thing was just a psychological crutch that Vergil leaned on to justify his own shitty behavior. Or what if the version of Sparta that Vergil had in his head was just an idealized figure he created as an imaginary friend that could never abandon him the way his actual father did in real life? You guys ever see Mr. Robot? Man, what a good friggin' show. Regardless of what you think his reasons were, Vergil still had his reasons. Whether they were justified or not is beside the point. The fact of the matter is there were psychological events in Vergil's past that paved the way for the actions he took in the future. That's where DMC5 creates one of a Brazilian problems, because out of all the reasons why Vergil craved more power, you know the one thing he wasn't motivated by? Defeating Dante. No, that's never been a major concern for Vergil at any point in time. In DMC3, Lady does say that the two brothers derive some kind of twisted pleasure from fighting each other, but that conflict was always just a byproduct of whatever else was going on in their lives. If beating Dante really was the only thing Vergil cared about, then this scene wouldn't be possible.
I see a devil inside you has awakened as well.
Wait. We should leave. For the moment we have all that we need.
How could Vergil allow himself to be influenced by a lowly human if his only purpose in life is to defeat his twin brother? The answer is because Vergil's objective was far more important to him than his sibling rivalry with Dante. Fighting with his brother was in fact trivial by comparison.
Hey,
I'm Vergil. Power, power, power. Thinking that his robot arm is gonna make a difference, Nero challenges Urizen to a rematch. Surprising no one, he gets his ass beat again. Then Dante shows up with a new demon form to save the day. Then we get another horrible flashback. Dante's jawbroker Morrison introduces him to V, who wants to hire him to take out the new Demon King. Dante recognizes the book V's carrying immediately because it used to be his brother's prized possession, so at this point Dante's thinking, oh, you're my twin brother. But he's curious what's gonna happen next, so he decides to let things play out. Anyway, V says that a powerful demon's about to take over the world, and Dante's all like, another one?
Another one.
And V replies, and I swear to you I didn't edit this.
This demon is your reason. Your reason for fighting.
Get it? Your reason? Urizen? Oh my fucking god! And then I guess because it was never meant to be a secret, Dante asks, wow, V, what's the demon's name, huh? And V just straight up says Vergil. He just says it. I imagine this scene might have actually worked in Japan because most of the sounds that can be made with these mouth movements don't exist in Japanese. In English though, it's the stupidest thing I've seen in the past 600 years. What do you call a fish with no eyes? After that, the game jumps back and forth like hella times. It's nauseating. During the battle with Urizen at the beginning of the game, after V and Nero escape, Dante gets punched so hard that the rebellion explodes. This is actually a really powerful image, and I'm gonna be honest, I was legit shocked the first time I saw it. See, the rebellion was a gift from Dante's father, so it being broken is kinda symbolic of Dante's family ties being broken, which is why it's fitting that in the next moment, Trish throws him the sword that bears his father's namesake, so Dante can reignite the spark within his soul and remember what it means to be a son of the legendary Dark Knight Sparta. Or not. Then we jump back to the present day, and this is quite possibly the dumbest part of the game. V tells Trish his origin story, and wouldn't you know, it's another flashback. He explains that Vergil's body was breaking down after losing so many battles. Just one question. What battles? Before DMC 5, the last time we saw Vergil fight was against Dante back in DMC 1. I did the math. DMC 5 takes place at least 15 years after the first game. At least 15 years. So you mean to tell me Vergil was walking around getting his ass kicked for a decade and a half before he randomly decided, hey, I got an idea? No, Bingo. Sorry, that's not how this works. You owe me 15 years worth of answers before you can jump to this point. God. Oh, this is bad. Anyway, Vergil takes the Yamato to his childhood home as some kind of sentimental gesture, and because he's king of the weeaboos, he commits ritual seppuku. And then something quite strange happens. When they were coming up with ideas for this story, somebody had to have been like, hey, what if we took key objects from the lore that have had their abilities and limitations clearly defined over several entries in the franchise and then just fucked it up? Then I'm assuming somebody said that is the stupidest idea I've ever heard. Nah, it's cool, see, we'll just pretend things have always been like that and not explain any of it.
Fuck yeah!
Thanks to that, not only can the Yamato open portals, it can also separate the two halves of a human-demon hybrid into two individual parts. That last ability is almost supported by DMC lore, since the Yamato was used to separate the human world from the demon world. But that's a dangerous way of thinking, because that implies the human world and the demon world were originally just one planet that Sparta split into two separate dimensions. That could have huge ramifications on future Devil May Cry stories, because if that's true, that means the Yamato is powerful enough to split an entire planet into two planets.
What?
I don't think that's what's going on though. As I understand it, the human world and the demon world were always separate, and Sparta just separated the bridge between the two. But I guess Vergil spent 15 years thinking about it and realized he could sever the bridge between his human and demon halves. But he took it a step further, because he also cut the post-traumatic stress disorder out of his mind and had it manifest as familiars that V can use during combat. And that means the Yamato can remove someone's bad memories and give those memories physical bodies. Here's what I need to know. Are there any limitations to this ability? At all? Could you separate a Reese's peanut butter cup into a Hershey bar and a can of Skippy? Could you then divide the milk chocolate into a handful of cocoa beans and a healthy grass-fed cow? Where do you draw the line? I despise playing as V in DMC5, but from a storytelling standpoint, he could be an interesting character if he was handled by somebody who knew what they were doing. His design is interesting enough, although the Birkenstocks are a bit much for me. But my problems with V go way past these fugly-ass sandals. All evidence points to the fact that V was originally supposed to be a brand new character. Then somebody, I'm guessing Bingo, took another shot and decided to make him into Vergil. That was a terrible idea, because I can't for the life of me find any aspect of Vergil's personality that carried over to V. We're told that this person is supposed to be Vergil's human side, but come on. Are you seriously gonna sit here and tell me that if it wasn't for Vergil's demonic heritage, if he hadn't been traumatized by his family being killed when he was 8, if his mind and body hadn't been forced into slavery by the king of the underworld, like if only it wasn't for those things, then Vergil would just be a theater kid? What? Wait a second. That's actually a really good idea. Vergil seems like the last person who would waste his time on dancing and poetry, right? But he also defines himself as a demon. So if you take that side of him out of the equation, maybe he'd be a completely different person. If that was the case, that would be the tipping point where the series stopped being about literal devils and started to be about the personal demons we all carry with us in our daily lives. Vergil's pursuit of power would be completely justified in that scenario because he tragically defines himself based on his past trauma, that being the day Mundus tried to take all power away from him. By that same principle, V's entire existence would be a metaphor for what people could accomplish if they weren't tied down by emotional baggage. A revelation like that would recontextualize the entire series right down to the title. I could write an entire master's thesis on the figurative meaning behind Devil May Cry in this new light. Doing so would thrill me to no end, except for the fact that Bingo took the only piece of literary brilliance the series had ever seen and he just threw it away. And now it's gone for good. Just when you thought this story was gonna let up and give you a break, it just keeps kicking you when you're down. Over and over and over. Dante retraces Vergil's steps back to their childhood home, then he realizes something. If the Yamato can split things up, maybe the rebellion lets you absorb things into your skin like fucking Majin Buu or some shit. So Dante disembowels himself, then his father's 7-foot sword gets sucked into his backside.
That's what she said. Don't you dare.
I got a million other questions. Could the rebellion have absorbed other stuff? Dante only did it once with the Sparta. Can you imagine how OP Dante would be if he used the rebellion to absorb enemies instead of killing them? Did the new legendary Devil Sword Dante, retain any of the absorption properties of the rebellion? Cause if it were me, I would run around stabbing myself like all the time. If I was hungry, I'd just strap a pizza to my back and run myself through. So cheesy. Alright, so Dante gets Urizen into a stalemate, then Urizen makes some bullshit excuse like he's got a demonic apple pie that he's got to take out of the oven, so he gets the hell out of there. Then we see the Yamato, and Dante looks surprised for some reason, as if V didn't literally tell him that Urizen is Dante's brother. And also, he is Dante's brother. What? Anyway, Urizen's gone, so Dante regroups with his team, and that's when we hear about Urizen's objective for the first time, 3/4 of the way into the story. Urizen summoned a giant demon tree called the Clyphot so it could suck the blood of thousands of innocent people and grow a fruit made of human juice from concentrate. Any demon who eats the Clyphot fruit gains incredible power. Apparently Mundus was able to become king of the underworld after he himself ate the same fruit. Now wait just a goddamn minute, cause I need to dance. After a couple boss battles that don't serve the plot in any way whatsoever, V finally tells Nero that Urizen is really Dante's brother Vergil. Nero's obviously surprised to hear this because he had no idea. For us, the audience though, this is the 4th time we've been told this over the course of the game. My therapist said I can't begin the healing process until I get through this, so I gotta push forward. Dante confronts Urizen in a VR simulation generated by the Clyphot fruit. No, that's not a joke. I'm serious. That's what it is. Okay? So Dante makes one final half-assed attempt to reason with his brother. But it doesn't work, and Urizen spends a crazy amount of time admiring the literal fruit of his labors. All Dante has to do is shoot the fucking thing, but as we've seen before, Dante's curiosity knows no bounds. In any other story, the Qliphoth fruit would be what's referred to as a MacGuffin. Basically, a MacGuffin is just an object that the heroes want to stop the villains from finding. It doesn't matter what the object is, because all it does is give the characters context to keep having interactions throughout the plot. But even if the villains do get a hold of the MacGuffin, the heroes eventually realize that what they were looking for was within them the whole time. In the end, the real treasure was the friends you made along the way. That's why you want to reveal the MacGuffin as early as possible. It distracts the audience from the actual theme of the story, so that when the protagonist eventually discovers the lesson they were supposed to learn, it hits both them and the viewer over the head like a brick. Not all stories have MacGuffins, but most of the DMC games do. In DMC 3, it was Dante's amulet. In DMC 4, it was the Yamato. DMC 5's MacGuffin is technically Vergil himself and not the Qliphoth fruit, so revealing 3/4 of the way into a story that there's suddenly a magical object that could make the villain all-powerful, that does nothing to increase the stakes. Besides, Urizen eats the fruit and becomes the strongest demon to ever live, and he still gets laid the fuck out. So if you were to completely remove the Qliphoth fruit from this story, nothing about it would change. As the second rule of storytelling goes, if you can take something out and the overall plot stays the same, you're obligated to delete it. There just needed to be one thing to demonstrate why this Qliphoth fruit was such a big deal. If the entire story was building up to this point, Vergil ate the fruit, and then he did something insane that he wasn't able to do previously, like blot out the sun with bees or eat the moon, I wouldn't even be talking right now, but that's not what happens. He gets his ass beat. So, what exactly did Urizen accomplish by eating the Qliphoth fruit? As far as I can tell, he just cut off his dreadlocks. You could argue that Urizen eating the fruit was necessary because it symbolizes Vergil finally beginning to understand that true power comes from within, not from external means or some bullshit like that.
Wrong.
And that brings us to the biggest plot twist of Devil May Cry 5. It turns out the big reveal of this game wasn't the fact that Vergil is back. Oh no. In the end, V and Urizen had been working together, and that was Vergil's plan the whole time. Urizen's job was to create and eat the Qliphoth fruit, and V's job was to gain everyone's trust while secretly scheming to remerge with his powered-up demon form later. Even V's familiars were part of the plan. As the embodiment of Vergil's psychological trauma, they were created specifically in order to be killed, so when Vergil eventually reformed, he'd have no mental handicaps holding him back.
Wow, that branch is mixed with mine. And our roots. Together join.
Wait, whatever the Yamato splits up can join back together at any time? They don't need a special artifact like the Rebellion to do it? You know, that would be pretty cool if they showed that Urizen had one of the broken pieces of the Rebellion and V used that to reassemble with his demon half. But no, after all that, after killing tens of thousands of people and regaining his humanity, Vergil is revitalized and he has learned absolutely nothing. He did all that in order to kill Dante. And now that he finally has the power he's been searching for, and now that he has the perfect opportunity to defeat his brother, what does he do?
Heal your wounds, Dante. Get strong. After that, we'll settle the matter.
Are you fucking kidding me? After everything Vergil did to become stronger than Dante, he's gonna give his brother another chance to surpass him? What?
Somebody please explain this, me no understand what Bingo be thinking about with this bumbleclot narrative.
As you can see, none of this makes any sense. And that's when Dante drops a bomb on Nero's head.
He's your father! What?
I had the feeling the first time I saw you, but I just wasn't sure.
If Dante wasn't sure who Nero's father was, who the fuck else could it have been? This is actually a major problem with the entire Devil May Cry series, not just DMC 5. How many other silver-haired half-demons with superhuman strength and agility are there in this world? Cause it sounds like there could be a lot. I mean, the fact that Nero doesn't even consider the possibility that he could be related to V when they first meet tells me that half-demons are actually pretty common in this universe. Again, Dante doesn't want Nero to have to kill his own father, so he's gonna do it. Dante is just so selfless that he's willing to risk Nero resenting him for the rest of his life, but at least Nero wouldn't have to save the world from a genocidal monster. Way to take one for the team, Donster. You're a real team player. Let's just skip to the end, I'm sick of this. Dante and Vergil start fighting to the death as brothers tend to do, and during the battle Dante reveals that Nero is Vergil's son. Vergil's noticeably surprised by this, and he makes it seem like he knows exactly how that happened.
Well, well. That was a long time ago.
I guess you were young once too. As much as I'd love to hear that story,
Oh, fuck you, Bingo. We want to hear that story. That's literally the only story that matters. But remember when I said Dante's curiosity was boundless? Yeah, well, his desire to commit fratricide apparently goes way deeper. This is a very odd stylistic decision because the last time Dante saw his brother, he was reaching out to him to try and save him from falling into the underworld. Even after Vergil tried to make hell on earth, Dante still thought it was possible for Vergil to be rehabilitated. Even if they would have continued fighting for the rest of their lives, Dante still would have preferred that to losing his only family. That's why Dante shed tears for his fallen twin at the end of DMC 3, because it took him too long to realize how important it is for family to stick together, and because he felt guilty for not being able to talk some sense into his brother. That guilt is part of what fuels Dante's desire to stop Mundus after he realized his brother had been subjugated into a mindless attack drone for the forces of evil. The issue with Dante and Vergil's relationship in DMC 5 is that this game makes it seem like the two brothers have been fighting since the day they were born, and that's just false. During the battle with Arkham in DMC 3, both Dante and Vergil remembered a time when they used to play together as brothers before fate turned them against each other. In that scene, Dante and Vergil demonstrated to each other that they don't disagree on everything, and given the right circumstances, there could be a scenario where the two would join forces and work together. None of that emotional nuance is present in DMC 5. Nuance is a great word, by the way, but you gotta put the stank on it when you say it or it doesn't sound right. Nuance. Let me sum up Dante and Vergil's feelings for each other as they're depicted in DMC 5. So Itchy and Scratchy fly towards each other, both of them harboring murderous intent. In one fatal instant, their feud will be decided. One will live, and one will die. Psych! Nero shows up and tells the boys to play nice. But wait a second, where'd this fancy new demon form come from? If only we had a flashback to explain how this— oh, there it is. Nero calls Kyrie on the phone. She's only the most important person in Nero's life, but you never see her in the game. Then Nero beats himself up about Credo and decides he can't let his newfound uncle and father kill each other, so through sheer willpower alone, he grows a brand new arm. What the fuck? Not just a new arm, but some chicken wings that let him fly at Mach 12. Oh, and he used to have short hair, but in this new demon mode, he has long hair. Get it? He grows all these things to symbolize how much he's grown as a person. It might sound like I'm shitting on the game for this, and yes, but also no. That's actually a really good design choice, especially the hair thing. And the wings are a great visual that prove Nero's finally learned the theme. That's right, everybody. DMC 5 almost did something right for once. Yeah! Haha! So what exactly is the theme in Devil May Cry 5? V tells Nero the theme at the beginning of the game. Interestingly enough, it winds up being some good fatherly advice that sends Nero on a journey of self-reflection.
Stop hitting yourself and think of ways to get stronger and actually help.
Stop hitting yourself. That's the theme. Nero's no good to himself or anybody else as long as he keeps carrying a burden of guilt on his shoulders. In order to grow stronger, he needs to learn to forgive himself for what happened to Credo. Nero's angelic wings are a good indication that he's begun the healing process, since they could be seen as a callback to Credo's Angelo form. But if you ask me, it would have been better if Nero had something else that really drove the point home, like Credo's shield or the white and gold color scheme. Never mind the fact that Nero didn't even seem to acknowledge Credo's death in DMC 4. Neither did Kyrie for that matter, now that I think about it. So this is one instance where a retcon is actually a good idea. Nero needed some sort of psychological hang-up to hold him back, and even though I can think of a million better things, the Credo angle gets the job done.
Now armed with the strength in his heart to protect the ones he loves, Nero stands defiantly betwixt his father and uncle. From deep within his soul, he calls out to the fated brothers.
Oh my god, stop fighting. So Nero declares he's putting an end to Dante and Vergil's feud. To seal the deal, Nero knocks Dante into next week. So for this guy, it's kinda like a flash forward. Vergil is definitely impressed by the fact that Nero was able to take Dante out with a single punch. So Vergil says, hey Dante, if I kill my son, there's no point in us fighting anymore because I'm automatically stronger than you, deal? And Dante's like, yep, sounds good. The battle between Dante and Vergil was a death match. This look in their eyes was an indication that somebody gon' die. So I gotta assume Vergil was willing to go to the same lengths when it came to Nero. And that tells me Vergil didn't acknowledge Nero as his own flesh and blood. He only looks at other people as opportunities to prove his superiority over them. It doesn't matter that they're related. All that matters is who's stronger. And if his opponent dies during the fight, that's what they get for being weak.
If he dies, he dies.
And so the battle between father and son begins. The game turns the difficulty way down to try and give you a sense of how powerful Nero's become. Normally I would say this is a bad idea, and it is, but they kinda have to so you get used to Nero's new abilities. And lowering the difficulty actually works into the narrative in a cool way. Nero's goal isn't to kill Vergil, all he wants to do is beat his father into submission. And not only does Nero thoroughly beat the shit out of his dad, he makes it look easy. Nero did the Devil Trigger equivalent of one of these. Then Dante says some more stupid shit.
Oh, brother. You cut off your own son's arm for more power, and you still lost.
See, no, that line is categorically incorrect. It should be, oh brother, you cut off your own son's arm, split yourself into two, created an alter ego whose only purpose was to manipulate people, destroyed an entire city with a giant tree that could be seen from space, killing tens of thousands of people in the process, then ate a fruit made from those people's blood for more power, and you still lost. In case it hasn't been made abundantly clear by this point in the story, Vergil did some monstrously evil shit over the past few weeks. But Dante's just sitting there laughing like an idiot, teasing his brother like he just lost a game of tetherball. Like, what the f*** is wrong with these people? Nero, it seems, is the only one in the family who's thinking rationally. He tries to rally his father and uncle to work together to stop the demon tree from destroying the entire planet. Realizing how deeply and utterly he's just been humiliated, Vergil has no choice but to rethink every choice he's ever made in his life. Being the prideful son of Sparta that he is, he tries to say something cool to save face, but ultimately he understands that he shouldn't waste the second chance he's been given. What I like about this scene is that thanks to Nero, Dante and Vergil immediately squash whatever bad blood they had between them. In a single instant, they once again start to see each other as brothers, picking up right where they left off as if they were 8 years old again. And what's cool as hell about Dante and Vergil from this point on is that you can tell they've put their differences behind them because of the way they talk to each other almost telepathically. The two walk away together without the need to argue about who's gonna do what or anything like that. They formulated a multi-tiered battle plan with nothing more than a glance in the other's direction. Nero asks where they're going, and Vergil explains the conversation that he and Dante had entirely in their minds. That type of communication is only possible when people are on the same page. Dante and Vergil might have been finishing each other's sentences before, but now the two have a damn near symbiotic relationship. So what's the plan? Dante and Vergil have to go into the underworld to trim the bush. Dante's gonna provide cover while Vergil performs the spell to seal the portal to Earth. They're gonna be trapped down there, so the two will have to work together to watch each other's backs until they can find a way to return home. Until then, both Dante and Vergil want Nero to carry on the legacy of the legendary Dark Knight Sparta. Nero's definitely learned the theme of the story by this point, and he's started to forgive himself, but he doesn't think he's ready for that much responsibility. He wants to keep the training wheels on. But the Sparta twins, moving in unison to slap some sense into him, force him to take a step back and look at the big picture. Literally. They don't say a word, they just look at him as if they're asking him to look back and see what he's managed to accomplish. Nero was able to reforge the relationship between two brothers who were ready to kill each other just moments before. He was able to make his psycho father see how ridiculous it was to blindly pursue power at the expense of others. And maybe, just maybe, he also might have taught his father how much stronger he can become when he has people beside him that care about him. Before diving into the abyss, Dante says,
"Take care, Nero. Adios."
Which feels like his way of thanking Nero for helping him get his brother back, something he failed to do the last time they saw each other. He throws a friendly salute in there before he leaves, and there's so much said with this one small gesture. It's like he's saying, hey man, don't trip, you got this. Vergil promises Nero that he won't lose their next sparring match. To make sure he keeps that promise, he gives Nero the item that symbolizes his lost humanity that he was able to rediscover thanks to his son's actions. The fact that Vergil wants to fight his son again is definitely strange, but I think that's the best possible outcome for these two. Because at least Vergil's making an effort to be some part of Nero's life. And Nero's a grown-ass man, it's not like he's even looking for a father figure. Even though Vergil doesn't acknowledge Nero as his son, he does see Nero as a rival. In other words, Nero is someone Vergil can learn from, someone who will inspire him to become the best possible version of himself. And he hopes that by issuing that challenge, Nero will continue to get stronger, so that each of them can help the other exceed their boundaries. Considering how dysfunctional the Sparta clan is, that's about as close to a happy and loving family as you're gonna get. Back in the demon world, Dante and Vergil stare down the big giant demon bush. Vergil says he can handle it, but Dante disagrees. This is just my interpretation, but I get the sense that Vergil knows exactly how bad he fucked up. So he's imprisoning himself in the demon world the same way somebody might turn themselves into the police. Dante's there to make sure Vergil serves his sentence. Not as a prison guard or anything like that, but more like a sponsor for a recovering drug addict. Listen to the way Vergil talks about power and tell me that isn't a dead ringer for a junkie. You ever hear stories about addicts who steal their grandma's TV to pawn it off to buy more drugs? Remind you of anybody we know? That's why Vergil's face has cracks in it when we first see him. 'Cause he's a crackhead. So when Dante says you're gonna need some help, I don't think he was talking about cutting down a demonic cherry tree. He was talking about helping Vergil to quit chasing the dragon. The next time we see the Sparta twins, it's over a month into Vergil's rehab program, and the two of them have been fighting the whole time. The first time I saw this scene, I thought it was stupid. I mean, after everything Nero did to stop the two of them from fighting, nothing had actually changed between them. But after closer examination, their relationship is night and day compared to what it used to be. Instead of a fight to the death, it's become a friendly sparring match. It might look violent as hell, but you can tell by the way they bicker like kids they're having a good time. Imagine the first time you saw two big dogs playing together. You might have thought they were trying to bite each other's throats out when they were actually just playing a game. I imagine superpowered half-demons play fight in the exact same way. After watching this scene literally over 100 times, it's clear to me that whatever animosity the brothers once had between them is long gone. And to see them fighting in perfect synchronization against the forces of hell, as if the entire reason they had been fighting was to prepare for moments like this, there are no words for the immeasurable amounts of joy this brings me. Right up until Bingo fucks it up, that is. Damn it! It was so close. It was so close to being the perfect ending. You know what really would have sold the idea that the two brothers had put aside their differences and had reached a form of mutual respect and understanding? What if, during the battle, Dante and Vergil's weapons got mixed up and they were forced to use the other's fighting style? But despite the switch-up, each of them fought with absolute confidence and proficiency, showing how thoroughly the two of them understood each other. Could you imagine? Oh, is that what happened in DMC 3? Yeah, that's what happened in DMC 3. I hate with a passion this line right here.
Don't you dare say it's jackpot!
I hate that so much because it was already established that jackpot is something both twins used to say as kids. Like, come on, Bingo. You wrote that. Also, in my official headcanon, the Sparta twins were absolutely talking about the loot they scored after trick-or-treating. Dude, you know it would have been hella sick if Vergil was the one to say Dante's line from DMC 3 this time, signifying that he remembered the last time they fought together side by side. If they had just done that, you wouldn't even be watching this video right now, because there's no point in discussing perfection. DMC 5 is far from perfect, and the majority of it is garbage, but that's because the Devil May Cry games are all good stories that are told like some shitty shit. Because of that, I couldn't shake the feeling that it was only my personal interpretation of the game's narrative that I was having a good time with. And when the thing you like most about a game's story is just your own headcanon, something's gotta give. But as long as we're talking headcanon, I might as well go all out. The cool thing about the Devil May Cry series is that there are so many gigantic retcons packed together like sardines that you can argue the case that each game actually takes place in its own universe. The canon doesn't make sense because in these games, there is no canon. So I'm gonna keep being a fan of this series, but I'm also gonna use the Yamato to separate what Devil May Cry means to me from whatever the series becomes in the future. Until then, live and let die.